Assalamu alaikum everyone. So this week in our project class, we started learning about rocks. We started off with the question that what do we already know about rocks since we have been studying about different materials for a while. So what do you guys remember talking about the rocks in the class, and what is it that you want to learn about the rocks? What are you curious about? What questions do you have in your mind when you think about rocks? So we've made a list of a bunch of questions which we will continue learning in the coming classes. Then we moved on and saw different pictures where, and in the pictures, you guys were supposed to spot the rocks. The first picture is of a beach. It's called Pebble Beach. Now, I have a request from all of you. So, what you need to do is you need to pause each of the picture and see if you can spot the rocks or not. So let's start off with this. So this is a pebble beach. And as you know, all the tiny rocks that you see around yourself are called pebbles, whereas the huge rocks are called boulders. Now let's move on to the next picture. Can you spot the rocks in this picture? So those of you who were in the class, you guys annotated and marked all the rocks that you saw in this picture. So this is a huge cliff made up of one type of rock that's called a chalk rock. These are called chalk cliffs. So the chalk that you use to scribble on the floors, on the boards, actually comes from a real life rock. Let's move on to the third picture. So this is a picture of a countryside. So now again, you guys can pause and mark, and just mark all the rocks that you see. So in the class, you guys said that you spotted some mountains as well, some rocks on the side of the road, and also the road itself is made up of rocks. When asked the questions, you guys said that it's like we discussed earlier, it's made up of natural as well as man-made rock. Since it might have concrete and cement as well, which are man-made rocks. Let's move on to this picture. So these mountains are actually made up of a type of rock that's called granite. So these peaks are completely made out of the stone that's granite. We learn some more about it in the coming classes as well. Now, this town center. Some of you said that you don't actually see rocks lying around, but we discussed and came to the conclusion that since rocks are converted and are used in different forms, like this planter, this huge pot might be made of a certain type of a rock, and the whole flooring of this place, as well as the buildings, have cement and concrete and even bricks. So yes, rock is used in the construction of this whole town center in one way or another. We also talked about these poles, that how copper ore or iron ore actually comes from the rock. So yes, so rocks are all around us since so many different things actually come from rocks, different metals or stones. Then you saw the picture of this mountain. And these mountains are also completely made out of rocks and snowy peaks. It's covered in snow, but underneath the snow are also rocky mountains. Now you have muddy fields in front of you. So while we discussed this in class, a few children said that they do not see any rocks in this picture. All they see is water, mud, grass, and a few houses and trees at the back. But then, as we know, that the earth is actually made up of a whole layer of rock. So while the rocks might not be visible to our eyes in the form of pebbles or boulders or mountains or cliffs, there is actually a whole layer of rock under the surface of this mud. Okay, now volcanoes. So volcanoes actually the one very important type of rocks that we will be learning about in the coming weeks actually comes from volcanoes. Now, after seeing so many pictures and discussing in the last class as well, let's define what exactly we mean by the term rock. So rocks are actually natural solid materials made up of different types of minerals. a bit like ingredients of the cake. Just like cake is made up of so many different ingredients combined together, Allah Ta'ala has made rocks by combining a lot of minerals and even fossils, dead plants, dead animals, sand and stones, they all combine together. And different types of rocks are formed. Rocks actually form the Earth's outer solid layer, the crust, and most of its interior. Rock is often covered by soil or water. Rocks are also beneath the oceans, the lakes, the rivers of the earth, and also, just like we just saw, a picture of a mountain that was covered by snow. So even polar ice caps, underneath them, there are rocks in one form or the other. So you know what is an interesting fact? Rocks have been used by humans for over 2 million years. And we all knew what a hammer was during the class. So a hammer tool was one of the first rock tools used by humans. Isn't that an interesting fact? Now, the mining of rocks. So we discussed this in class that so many things around us, copper, iron, gold, copper and iron in the form of ore actually comes from the stones and rocks. And we even have rocks. We even get gold out of the rocks. We have gold mines, we have diamond mines. They all come from inside the mines. We even have salt mines in Kura, and we even have coal mines. So the mining of rocks for their metals has been one of the most important things in the human advancements, since we get so many things from under the surface of the earth that Allah Ta'ala has put naturally around us. So rocks are mined for building materials of all kinds as well. Now, you know what the study of rocks is called? The scientific study of rocks is actually called petrology. Whereas the people who study different types of rocks and try to figure out how long have they been there and try to figure out different things about them are actually called geologists. Now I want you all to look at this picture. What do you think it's called? So this is actually a balanced rock and it stands in the Garden of God's Park in Colorado Springs. Now, the three types of naturally occurring rocks that we will be learning about in the coming weeks are igneous rocks, sedimentary rocks, and metamorphic rocks. Now, the home task that I have for all of you is that you have to watch this video and figure out the three rocks that they are telling you about in this video, and go to the Schoology, watch this video and attempt the task that's given there. So this is it for today. I'll see you all in the coming week. Allah Hafiz.